Good morning, Intenders.
Good morning.
Welcome and welcome back to Morning Intentions. Today is Wednesday, March 11th. Before we get back to our questions that we've been focusing on and reflecting on this week, I wanted to say a little something about self-forgiveness because what you were saying, Annette, I've been thinking about this all day long. We can ask ourselves these questions, we can do our reflection, and we can have these awarenesses like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? Or what have I done? If we're a little further on in our personal development journey. Like, what have I been doing to myself? What have I been doing to others? We can start spiraling a little bit about where we've been. And this is where self-forgiveness and compassion come in. Compassion, our definition is we're all doing the best we can with the tools, awareness, and understanding we have at the moment. And it's at that moment that we were acting in. So, Annette, when you've been codependent in the past, that was the best awareness you had at that time.
Remember yesterday where I said I can think about those times and my face literally can turn red now.
And that's why I wanted to talk about self-forgiveness, because it's unfair to ourselves to take our March 11th, 2026 understanding of how we would like to show up in the world and judge ourselves against years gone by. So if I were looking at my, let's say 2012 version of Ada, and then judging her from 2026, how would that be right? The tools, awareness, and understanding I have today, I'm a lot more aware. I have better tools. I have more understanding of how I'd like to show up, how other people show up. I have more of everything when it comes to my personal development work today than I did in 2012. So if I'm trying to judge myself, like my past self, with today's understanding, of course I'm always going to look at that with a sense of guilt, maybe with a sense of shame, and that's not fair to do to ourselves. So let's keep compassion in mind and recognize those were the tools I had at the time. That was the understanding, that was the awareness I had in that moment. I don't have that understanding today. I don't have that awareness today. Thank God I have better tools. So from here on out, I'll use my tools and understanding and awareness, but I don't need to go back and look at that and shame myself and beat up on myself because I didn't have today's tools in yesteryear.
What would you say to someone like little old me 10 years ago who was taking Terry Cole's boundary classes? And at that moment, I could see myself doing it in that moment. I mean, there's some of us who are listening, and I would have to count myself as part of that because, yes, I have worked through much of this, but it's still part of me. But I do know the experience of taking Terry Cole's class and then saying to myself, this is me right now. This is me right now. Yes, I have compassion for myself, maybe. It's hard to get to compassion sometime when we're in that deep realization period. Okay, I have been doing the best I can, but it can be a little unsettling, to say the least, of like, what have I been doing? What have I been doing? You know, like this is, so my reaction was, what have I been doing with my life? Have I wasted my life? I had huge reactions to this. And so I think what you're saying, which I appreciate you saying, is the self-forgiveness is maybe we can see ourselves now and we wouldn't do it now what we did back in 2012. But there might be, and I'm sure there are, because I would be one of them. I can still see myself on some of these pages, but I'm kind of still doing some of this stuff now. And then that's where I think it can be really challenging, because especially if you've been doing some self-inquiry work, or you've had some therapy, or you've had some coaching for a number of years, but you still see yourself. I know anger can come up, like I wasted my life, or the shame can be a big experience. How would you recommend working through that so that we can continue on our work instead of getting sidetracked, because it can be easy to feel that, well, I've totally messed up, or I have had this way of being for so long, and then feel stuck in this moment.
First things first, give yourself time. We often don't give ourselves enough time to process our emotions and our feelings, and we expect instant results so we can learn something new, then we can judge ourselves against our new learning. We can go back. We don't give ourselves time to grieve when we look at the past. So give ourselves some time, maybe to sit with our sadness, sit with our disappointment of ourselves. That's not going into a shame storm, but it's also okay to sit with these feelings because Annette, you shared, I can't remember when you shared with with us. I know it was very recently that even with a strong emotion like grief, it doesn't last very long when we give it space to be heard.
And there is grief here, because you can grieve all the days you didn't show up the way you wanted to show up, or all the days that you were showing up in a way you thought was wonderful. And you're saying, maybe that wasn't so wonderful. Or maybe you feel that someone else robbed you of your days, that they had these expectations, and because you were codependent with them, you did it all. So grief is a part of this.
Very much so. The other thing I would suggest is thinking about what's called a sunk cost fallacy. Now, a sunk cost fallacy is when we continue to invest in something emotionally, financially, because we've already spent time, energy, or money in something that hasn't worked out. So think of a old car. I remember, Annette, you had an old Volvo. Wasn't old when you bought it, but it became old over time. That we had, it was like our family car. We took so many trips in there, and then it got to the point where it couldn't keep running. Every trip, it would break down at some point. We didn't trust it. Its reliability was gone. It was not the car that we could really rely on anymore. Do you remember this car?
Oh, I love this car. Yep.
Now, you could say in that situation, well, I should keep on fixing this car because, well, I've already spent so much money on it. I've invested $2,000 here, $1,000 here, fixing whatever needed to be fixed, fix the gaskets or whatnot. However, that style of thinking then keeps you trapped in bad investments. And we'll say emotional investments in this, and for this example with codependency. So we can think of, oh, all the times I spent in codependency. Oh, why did I do this to myself? Now, if we keep on giving those attention, all we do is just maintain and keep dumping money and emotional energy into something that now we recognize was a bad investment. Technically, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but you want to think of it in this terms and say, no, I just gotta cut my losses and let it go. Because the more energy and the more time you say, oh man, why did I do this? Why did I do this? Why did I do this? Give it some time and allow yourself to grieve, but also don't give the next 20 years of your life to saying, why did I do this for the first 20 or for the last 20? Because then, we've just continued this bad investment into a unhealthy mindset that hasn't worked yet and actually will never work. So cutting our losses and saying, okay, that didn't work. I just want to focus my time and attention on what will work in my life, what will contribute to the life I actually want, and ensuring we're putting the majority of our time and energy there. Again, feel our feelings, allow ourselves time to grieve, and then also shift our focus to what do I want now, not what did I miss out on then.
That's really excellent advice, Ada. Thank you.
I have one more thing to say about that, but we are out of time, so I'll save it for tomorrow if that's okay.
Sounds good.
So for today, though, our intention is I will give myself compassion and grace if I find myself grieving the past.
And even grieving the present.
Both of them. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you tomorrow.
See you then.